Solana has seen huge success with meme coins, but like at the end of the day, a lot of these guys aren't utilizing the opportunity that some of these valuations are garnering. But like Pudgy is the antithesis of that, where it's like huge valuation, huge momentum, but like real tangible success. And I think we've kind of become a little bit of a poster child within the Solana ecosystem in terms of like government facing and our interactions with them in terms of like, this is what these things can be and will become.
We're here with the CEO of Pudgy Penguins and the co-inventor of Abstract, Luca Netz. Good to see you, man.
I'm super happy to be here. It's been a while.
It has been a while, but you guys have been up to a lot, and obviously the PENGU token, all the attention on kind of what you guys are building, there's a lot to get into, but I guess just first for you, being here at Accelerate, what's it like to kind of see the community up close and personal?
I love it. You know, I think a huge reason for our success is just how intimate we've been with our community members and really just, you know, being for the people, by the people. And the Solana ecosystem is fascinating. It's been one that I've had a lot of respect for the last couple of years. And I'm just super stoked to have an asset that is trading within the network and that we can ultimately cultivate this energy. The Solana energy is just different. I say it every time I'm around it. It's a different cohort of crypto users. It's a younger group, a more hip group, and it's totally in line with, I think, our strong suits as an organization. So it's just great to be here, and the energy's been awesome.
Well, I want to talk about kind of, I think, you know, we've seen this meta, and you guys led it in terms of NFT projects, launching a token, crossing the chasm from ETH into Solana.
Yeah.
We saw Doodles just try and attempt to do something similar with probably, I think it's fair to say, less success. Do you think that that meta is like kind of dead now of NFT project to meme coin or a token?
I think at the end of the day, an NFT project's goal is to proliferate the IP, right? Like if your mission as an NFT project is to not proliferate the IP, I would argue that you shouldn't be an NFT project, right? And ultimately to me, I look at this ecosystem as a collectible ecosystem. And I think our thought process was really around PENGU, was really taking this main character that we are trying to make the internet's Mickey Mouse and ultimately giving that to as many people as possible and allowing them to come in as easily as possible. And for the really in-depth core collector, you have this identity asset on Ethereum that is a little more prestigious, a little more scarce, and has its own unique characteristics based on the individualization of each NFT. And so I think from my perspective, if you are an NFT project and you are on the brink of reaching escape velocity and you have tons of momentum in your corner and on your side, I think it's a natural progression to have a token that is as an easier access point. Now, naturally, NFTs and coins have their own pros and cons, but the pros of coins versus NFTs is that they're more liquid, they're more easily accessible, and everyone can have a piece of it, versus NFTs have a barrier to entry, they're less liquid, they're more of a collector's asset. And so I think every NFT project, if they are in line with the objective and the mission of IP proliferation and community growth, I think every collection will have a moment where it makes sense for them to have one of these assets in the ecosystem.
Yeah.
I think the idea of having one of these assets, though, when your ecosystem is not ready, right, when demand is not overflowing, is ultimately where a lot of these projects go wrong. Like for Pudgy Penguins, you know, when we launched our coin, our NFT was trading at $50,000, $60,000. The barrier to entry for a $50,000, $60,000 collectible, your TAM is what, a couple thousand people on the entire planet? So it made sense for us to open the floodgates, right? We want to be crypto's mascot. We want to be internet's Mickey Mouse. If we want to expand this community, it makes sense. But then you see collections doing it and they have a 2 ETH floor price, right? Which is $4 or $5 grand, where the TAM is still tens of thousands. And so there's not that clear overflowing demand in which an asset like that makes sense. And I think that's the core differentiator between, I think, what you see from our ecosystem versus maybe some others.
Well, I think it's been interesting to watch too, because the Coinage community took lessons from Pudgy and what you did with the PENGU token, because there is something to be said about straddling two ecosystems as well, because there might not be a touch point for people in the Solana ecosystem unless you have a token trading in that ecosystem. And same thing for us in terms of how we launched with our NFTs that are there. First distribution to NFT holders from a DAO co-op in the US, doing
Awesome,
what we're doing.
by the way.
And then now have the play button meme coin, and I think similarities there are burning tokens as you guys did with PENGU when it first launched. What do you make of that element, and maybe what people get wrong there too, in terms of, yes, that might be a supply lever you can pull, but it's not necessarily going to change the demand?
They're twofold, right? So you need to be able to create demand, but this idea where you have tokens with overflowing demand, but not some sort of deflationary aspect, the real recipe for a token success over the course of the short, medium, and long term is if you can really commingle the two, right? How do you create something that has overflowing demand and is also deflationary? And if you can sustain that over a course of time, it's not if you will win, it is when, right? So if you can deflate the token, if you can, create demand for that token and you can keep that consistency over a medium or long period of time, you will see huge success. And that is really the recipe. I mean, it is simple mathematics, elementary school mathematics, right? More demand, more pressure, lower supply. The recipe, for success is there, and it's something that we're really keen on. So, in the ecosystem, we're doing more buys and burns. Pudgy, hopefully, we're projected to do $40 to $50 million in revenue this year. I want to take a huge portion of that and buy our token. And if we can just keep doing that over the course of years, it's not if Pudgy Penguins and PENGU will be bigger than Doge and some of the incumbents, it's when.
I wanted to ask you about that too, though, because we were just down chatting with the Crypto Task Force about what we're trying to pioneer, but also asking SEC Commissioner Hester Peirce about some of these things. And I want to ask you, Luca, in terms of night and day operating in this space, trying to do some of those things you just mentioned, whether it's token buybacks, burns, whatever. Under the old administration, I don't know about you, but I was shitting my pants as an NFT founder trying to think about what we can do here.
Totally.
But now, how much more does that change your flexibility and comfortability with doing some of these things?
The floodgates are open, and you're going to really see the best of what crypto entrepreneurs are going to bring within these next couple of years. And hopefully the new administration after Trump is still as passionate, as in line with crypto and the opportunity here. But I think it is game on for the next 2 to 3 years. And I think you're going to see the best that crypto has to offer here shortly.
Yeah, for one of those pieces too is there was actually an ETF filed to get people access into PENGU. I wanted to ask you about that in terms of what it might also unleash. What's the thinking there? Is it just that institutional investors might not be able to touch this?
Yeah.
Now they could through an ETF.
The beauty about Pudgy Penguins and PENGU is how easily digestible it is to the regular person. So on one side of the spectrum, you have this Lindy, mimetic crypto icon that was conceptualized in crypto, brought back in crypto, and has really been pushing the space forward, and people love it within the space. On the other side, you have this business that's growing revenue 2 times year over year for the last 3 years. Hopefully we'll do $40 to $50 million in revenue this year. And the traditional finance guys and traditional retail investors, they understand Walmart, they understand movies, they understand games. And so we're in this really fortunate spot, in my opinion, where we can really capture 2 audiences really well. On one side, the crypto native, on the other side, this traditional finance, TradFi investor. And so I think from our perspective, we've really got the crypto stuff down pat. I think we have a really good finger on the pulse. We've really done a lot with relatively nothing compared to the next person in terms of our financing and being able to succeed within the crypto side of the space. But now we are leaning in so hard in terms of what does it mean to, actually craft legislation, galvanize the senators and the people that are a part of, the government side of crypto adoption, and really trying to insert ourselves as one of the premier examples. Because on one side, you could really look down on meme coins as like a really taboo, silly side of the industry. But if you look at Pudgy Penguins and its meme coin and you see how it ties into the whole ecosystem, it really adds a ton of credibility to, I think, this category, which I think is only going to grow bigger and bigger. And we've actually become government advisors, so we filed for the ETF, so the PENGU ETF was filed. That is both for the NFTs and the token. We've been probably 6 times in DC in the last 3 months, and we've officially become government advisors to the administration on what it actually looks like to craft crypto legislation.
Is that through Bo Hines, or are you chatting?
No, it's through a couple people. It's actually the Solana Policy Institute
Okay.
has really been hand-holding us through this entire process. Another testament to the greatness of Solana. Pedro, the whole crew, I think they realize, the case study and the opportunity in Pudgy Penguins, which is Solana has seen huge success with meme coins, but at the end of the day, a lot of these guys aren't utilizing the opportunity that some of these valuations are garnering. But Pudgy is the antithesis of that, where it's huge valuation, huge momentum, but like real tangible success. And I think we've kind of become a little bit of a poster child within the Solana ecosystem in terms of like government facing and our interactions with them in terms of like, this is what these things can be and will become.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that that's what I've been trying to push too in terms of, I don't know, it's still so early that people are experimenting with different ways to launch NFTs. For us, that was, hey, maybe instead of trying to mint out right away, you kind of incrementally raise the price based on how many people are joining your ecosystem.
Yeah.
Like you said, supply and demand can be moving, systematically throughout the life cycle of a project.
Yeah.
And that's something that we're playing around with right now, as we might, no alpha here, but might actually raise prices as we start to increase our membership. All that being said, we haven't even talked about abstract.
Yeah.
And that seems to be a huge piece that we need to dig into here. I mean, what's the goal with what you're trying to do? Because I would almost say that if you have the NFT, you got the token, to have a whole nother chain, it's a lot, man. It's a lot on your plate.
Yeah, I was just talking to a group about this in terms of a lot on our plate. We've probably got 8 or 9 guys in the Igloo leadership team that could be the CEO of this company. And so I think it's really a masterclass of cultivating talent because we're not overwhelmed, right? Like Saigar and crew are putting on an absolute clinic on the abstract side. And I think really the cultivation of abstract and how it came to be was really around the opportunity that we saw. The same opportunity we saw in NFTs and memes to disrupt and to lead is the same opportunity we see in blockchains. I think everyone's building the same general purpose approach with the same build and the same cadence, and nobody's really trying to target fun and culture, and I think that's really where we're dominating on the abstract side. Yeah. And so I think what I want you to hold me accountable for the next time we talk, I think abstract is going to lead fun in crypto. I think it's going to...
How do you measure that, though, by the way? It's something to measure.
I think you'll see it through breakthrough consumer apps, right? And you're right, it's not like a metric you can really like index for, but you'll just feel it.
Arguably, it might make it less fun to index for.
You'll just feel it. You'll just feel it. It'll be more one of those things where you to the wind, and you'll know. Like this is where I want to have fun. I go to the abstract ecosystem to have it. I think we're going to push crypto UX forward in a way that it's never been done before. I mean, it's in the name abstract. I want to abstract everything away. I want to create something so simple that a monkey could sign up and do it, which right now I think we're not there yet. I think crypto today, in terms of an ecosystem perspective, is too fragmented. It's like a puzzle piece. You got to put one piece here, one piece there, and it's just too many cooks in the kitchen, in my opinion. And I also think you're going to see us really leading the charge in terms of what it means to create content and to create culture on chain. And that means, top meme coin ecosystem, top NFT ecosystem, top gaming ecosystem. And I think we're on that path so far.
For bold calls in terms of where this goes, because you're right, it does seem like there's this next wave of innovation around things that have been left for dead. NFTs being one of those, almost everyone being like, oh, they're not a real thing anymore.
Yeah.
To me though, I mean, I feel like they're much better, like you said, tokens are one thing, but NFTs and community you can build around it are entirely different. I mean, is there a bold Luca prediction for a swing back to like NFTs in the second iteration?
I think NFTs will totally come back. I think they won't come back as speculative assets though. I think they'll come back as real collectibles, just digitized. And I think they'll come back as incubators, meaning if you're building a protocol, if you're building a new and if you're building anything in crypto, I always recommend start with an NFT project first. It doesn't need to be big. It can be small, but there's something about that cultivation and that alignment that I think is really important. You are probably an example of that. Mad Lads is an example of that, right? They started as an NFT project and then they became an exchange and a wallet and a slew of other products. Because at the end of the day, in crypto, if you don't have community, you better make sure you have the best product in the world. And most guys don't have the best product in the world, and they haven't innovated something so glaringly new that I think moves the needle. And so, I even met some of the top Photon and Nova, and some of these guys started off as NFT projects. And I think that's where you start, is a great starting point. And I think if you start there, you win your community over, you can take the next leg up in a way that I think most founders cannot.
I think that's a key piece in terms of, copying what worked about Bitcoin was value accrual to early users, your biggest, earliest fans.
Yeah.
What we've done in terms of paying out the first distribution for an NFT project in the US, I think was pretty cool to be able to say.
Totally.
And then I also feel like in terms of, NFT culture is that it's kind of easier to manage when you're only dealing with 9,000, 10,000, whatever it may be, rather than 1 billion potential holders of a token. And so, I guess when you put all those pieces together, for you right now, you said hold you to account. We're going to do that over
Yeah.
fun and watching what happens with Abstract. But in terms of how you see, I guess, the big headlines for 2025, the rest of the year,
Yeah.
we asked you last year for your big bold predictions. What's one from Luca Netz?
Do you remember what I said last year?
I know that it was
I
right
hope I
because we
honored
went
it.
back and looked at it and
Okay.
it was accurate,
Okay,
whatever it
cool.
was. But now we need to ask you again
Okay,
for 25.
I'll give you my 2025 prediction. I think Q4 will be absolutely mania for the Pudgy Penguin ecosystem. We're a Q4 company. We always have been in the cold, winter, holiday seasons. It's always been our pocket that we always strike the hardest.
Yeah.
So wait for Q4. I think we will have the biggest mobile crypto game of all time that's launching in Pudgy Party. I think we will lead the meme coin resurgence, as I think a lot of meme coins took a huge beating in that tariff shenanigan. But I think we'll be one of the leaders that help lead that resurgence. And I think we will take NFTs to a new height. I think we will go further than we've been in the past in terms of our NFT ecosystem. I have an incredibly monstrous swing at that. I'm not going to share it. I'm going to keep that one close to the chest. But if you thought Walmart was big, I think I got something bigger.
Okay, well, when you hit that, we were going to have you back on then, but it's always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Luca Netz. Appreciate it, man.